We're here, we're queer, and we love the Lord. That's right, you're listening to Coming Out Christian, a podcast about life at the intersection of queer identity and Christian faith. This fun, faithful, and sometimes irreverent podcast is a production of Love Boldly, an Ohio-based nonprofit creating spaces where LGBTQIA+ people can flourish in Christianity. I'm one of your hosts, Siobhan Boyd-Nelson, and my co-host is the Reverend Dr. Ben Huelskamp, Executive Director of Love Boldly. So join us, and let's find out who's coming out today. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Siobhan. How are you?
I am doing so well. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing very well. I hope that it is as beautiful, though much warmer when this episode comes out than it is today. But I'm liking that it's sunny.
Oh my
There's actually sun in
gosh.
the sky in Ohio.
Oh my
And
goodness, yes.
according to my watch, it's in the 40s. It's a heat wave.
Woo, 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 raise the roof. Yes, because we're in Ohio and it started snowing again last week. Let's be very clear. We are recording in the past in February. And after that big January snowstorm, getting more snow this week, it just felt like adding insult to injury.
Yes.
And it also could have been worse because we did not have to take part in the blizzard that hit New York City. And so that was a blessing. I'm very happy for that and even happier for this amazing sunshine.
Agreed.
So, Ben, I've got a question for you. Okay. And it has to do with the fact that my mom's birthday was yesterday, or is the day before this episode comes out.
Happy birthday to her.
Yes, big old happy birthday to my mama. And my question is, like, for your mom, what do you like? Do y'all give gifts for birthdays? And if so, is there something in particular that you like to give your mom? Because moms are different than dads, right? Like dads are like, whatever, give me a card, say happy birthday, call me, I'm good. Moms have feelings. And I say that as a mom because I definitely have feelings. So what do you think of when you think of your mom's birthday?
So usually with her, it's always been some sort of, something for the house, or for around the house, or has been some sort of purse or other, like accessory of some sort. That's usually been the go-to for her. Now that she's retired and isn't out and about as much, it tends to be more things that she can use around the house, clothing, gift cards, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's mostly been in that sort of realm for her.
So I will tell you the two most special birthday gifts I've ever gotten my mom, okay? And the first one was my college degree. I graduated on my mom's birthday in 2002, literally handed it to her. It was like, there you go. Happy birthday. Hope you like it. I think it was also Mother's Day, so it was a great twofer. And then this year, my son will be graduating again on my mother's birthday. So again, she gets to celebrate one of her offspring and their accomplishments on her birthday. And we just kind of get to be like, yay, we did it all for you.
and from the same college.
Yes, and from the same college, which is really cool. So that's what we will be doing as this episode comes out. Very much looking forward to that celebration.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I am also looking forward to this episode and to today's guest. And that is because we have the amazing Reverend Jim Keat joining us. And Jim uses he, him, his pronouns. Jim Keat is the Minister of Digital Worship and Education at the Riverside Church in New York City, where he creates original online content and cultivates a growing online community. He is also the director of online innovation at the Convergence Network and a digital consultant to various progressive faith agencies and organizations. He is the producer of original media projects from the Riverside Church like Bible in a Minute, The Word Made Fresh, Sermon on the Runs, Be Still and Go, and more. He creates regular resources to equip churches and faith leaders in their digital ministry, empowering progressive faith leaders to use the internet well and use it for good. Previously, Jim served as the Associate Minister of Education at Middle Collegiate Church, a product designer at Spark House, Augsburg Fortress, and at the middle school program and content pastor at Mars Hill Bible Church. He received his MDiv from Western Theological Seminary, where he received the Faculty Award for Advocacy in Racial Ethnic Reconciliation and the President's Community Life Award. Jim enjoys spending time with his wife, Chelsea, their sons, Lauren and Kai, and their 3 cats, Whitman, Wendell, and Harris. When the weather is warm, they enjoy visiting a new state park in their Airstream, and no matter the weather, he enjoys going out for a long run. Jim, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks so much. Who is that guy you just described? He sounds pretty cool. I want to hang out.
It's you. Yeah. And I can't wait to dig in and learn more about you. But we got to start with the first question we ask all of our guests. What is your testimony? What is your story at the intersection of queer identity and Christian faith?
Oh, that's such a rich question. My answer comes from the ally perspective of this. I'm a straight cis white dude, so there's too many of us in the world, but I graciously accept the microphone to get to chat with y'all, knowing that you all bring so many incredible people into this space. But for me, I did not grow up in a, liberal left-leaning space at all. So I'm one of those stories, which is, not uncommon, but I'm grateful that that is my story. I grew up in a small Midwest conservative town. My dad is a retired conservative Lutheran pastor, Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. If that means anything to people. So that's the Kool-Aid I grew up drinking. And I just thought that's what it was. I have distinct memories as like a first grader. This was like when calling something gay was kind of just becoming a slur. And I remember being told not to do that, which I was like, oh, interesting. That's a good lesson to learn as a young, tiny human. But then I also remember there were my sisters who are older, 2 older sisters. They had a queer person come and speak at their junior high for something. I wasn't there, so I heard it all, 8-year-old secondhand. But I remember the conversation was, well, homosexuality is a sin. So you can bring someone in like that, but they're still going to go to hell. And that was like the message I heard as a child growing up. Yeah. Thanks be to God, that is not the message I'm teaching my kids today. We proudly have a pride flag on our front porch in our tiny, small 5,000 person Michigan town, because we want, and we taught our kids this from literally when they were 2, the pride flag means you can be who you are and love who you love. And we want our boys to know that. We want everyone in our town to know, even if you don't agree with us, statistically proven, even in our small town, there's queer teens here. And it's nice for them to know that there's a family that is safe and supportive of who they are and who they are becoming. So for me, I grew up in this one lane of Christianity that said faith and identity and sexuality is this. And I distinctly remember sitting on the dock at Reed's Lake in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I went to a small Christian school in Grand Rapids called Cornerstone University. People may have heard of Calvin College. That was the liberal school up the street, which is kind of a joke because they're fairly conservative as well. But I remember sitting on the dock at Reed's Lake with a friend who was a student a few years younger than me. And we were sitting there and he came out and said he was gay. And he was a youth ministry major, just like me. And it was kind of this first moment of like in this conservative bubble, someone kind of popping something. And I thought, wait, John is the same person yesterday before I knew this as he is today now that I've known this. So something needs to shift in how I'm seeing the world, because John has always been John, but maybe this is an invitation for Jim to become a different Jim. So that is one moment among many, so many more I could talk about, but it's just led me down this path of just, once you learn something, it's hard to unlearn it. And once you realize that everyone needs liberation, why would you ever support a system that's going to marginalize and oppress? So I do my best to be a straight white dude that's not an asshole. And I show up in spaces where I try not to monopolize the seat that someone else has been deserving of for far too long, and recognize that voices have been speaking, we just haven't been hearing. So I'm grateful, my past 2 churches I've worked at now, I like that being a straight white guy is not an overwhelming majority in those spaces. So that's generally the thrust of it. There's lots of ins and outs, but yeah, it's brought me to where I am today and where I keep going tomorrow.
That is absolutely amazing. You put that so succinctly, of just trying not to be an asshole. And that's such a beautiful way of putting it, because really it's that simple, right? When you boil it down. Yeah. So let's talk about, so you're a PK, you're a pastor's kid. All right. And then you ended up working in ministry yourself, right? So, but different, you're doing different. It sounds like you're much more 21st century type of working in the 21st century of ministry. And so I really want to get into that area, because that's something that interests me, and I think probably interests our listeners. Is, the internet's a big place, social media, there's a lot going on. We're seeing European countries completely banning the use of social media by anyone under the age of 18. And I think we're kind of getting to this broader societal recognition that social media can't just be allowed to run amok, and it might need a few guardrails. And so it feels a little bit scary for those of us in faith spaces to be playing in a space that seems so dangerous. But, in your bio, we talk about using the internet well and using it for good. What do you mean about that? Please tell us more.
Oh, absolutely. I think when it comes to churches, especially, there are churches who use the internet really, really well, but I don't think they use it for a whole lot of good. They've got the marketing down. They are drinking they're making the Kool-Aid for the late stage capitalism and benefiting from it. And they have, so no, why should we just let the people with the worst theology have the best social media and online presence? Can you have good theology and a good, engagement in online spaces, good design? I hope so. I think so. Mainline, left-leaning, liberal churches, we're often way too busy meeting people's needs in our day-to-day life, and we don't have the extra budget to pay for the 10-person communications and design and marketing team. So I like to think, how can these, churches who have a robust, rich theology have a robust, rich presence in these online spaces? Because I think that's essential. It's always been essential, but it's especially essential now. I feel like 2016 was a moment when we all realized, whoa, we have a tweeter-in-chief who is just giving permission for people to behave in horrible ways. And he's setting the tone, and still is to this day. So I think that, to me, was a clear moment of progressive and liberal faith communities and individuals need to be present in these spaces, because those voices can't be the only voices saying something, especially when it comes to claiming Christianity or any faith tradition. And then I think 2020 gave us this, whoa, we are just lonely and don't know what to do, and we need to reach out and connect. And we realize the internet is a viable space for community and connection, not trying to replace on-site gatherings and grabbing a whiskey or a drink or a tea or whatever, but how can the two support one another, especially when people feel isolated and alone? This gives a sense for authentic connection and community. And then now, in this next iteration of Trump 2.0 and loneliness epidemic continuing, I think there's the two intersections where progressive faith communities must proclaim what we stand for boldly in these spaces, and we need to draw people towards these communities. Because imagine, the queer teen in Idaho, or the, 70-year-old grandparent in Kentucky who moved for his family but has no progressive community. How do these, and those are real people, I know, by the way, from the work I do, how do they find a connection and a community that can support them in who they are and how they want to engage in the world? So I think it's essential to use the internet well and to use it for good.
Whew, yes. Okay. So we have we did a mini season between seasons of Coming Out Christian, seasons 2 and 3, and it's called How Sweet the Sound. And we looked at music that we sing in our churches, and we looked at a couple of different, I would say, churches that have some amazing online presences, right? That have, YouTube subscribers in the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and have really figured out how to do it and how to have that online presence. And they've cracked that social media nut. But like you said, that's a lot of money behind there. Those are 10 and 15 people, media teams, kind of like a corporation almost. And our progressive left-leaning churches really are trying to meet people where they are in space. Like when, it's one thing if you spend all this time reaching out to people on social media, but what if there's nobody to meet them once they get to the space? You did all this thing to get them to the space. So how do our churches, I guess, square that circle of I need to, really invest time and capital into our online presence. And we've got to have some capacity left over for when the people actually show up in person.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is just too often pastors were trained to do one thing, and then we're thinking, oh, this internet thing is another thing I need to add on to my list. And, 2020, 2021 was the season when we were all thrown into the deep end of everything's online. And a lot of pastors really got exhausted, rightly so. They were learning brand new skills. And a lot of them were eager to go back to the building, to go back to what they were used to. And my biggest regret, I feel like that was a moment when we all cultivated new muscles. And so if we stop using them, they're going to atrophy. And that's probably what's happened in a lot of spaces. It's easy to get swept up in the needs of the people right in front of you. And I'm never saying stop doing that. And that's where it becomes hard. How do you keep meeting the needs right in front of you and be aware of this other thing? It's not just a checklist. Did we post the thing? It's not just a bulletin board. How does it become just a space people exist, a context that ministry happens in? Just like how do we redefine parish is kind of the question if you're going mainline language. Parish is a geographic space that churches live within. Well, what is our digital parish? How do you show up? And the hard thing is, you can't show up in all the places. You never can. There's this desire to, because we see what 10 people are doing online and they're doing 10 different amazing things. So I think I need to do all 10 of those things just as well as all those 10 people are. They're doing one thing each. Yeah. So what's the one thing I'm going to do? Which is the same question we have in traditional contexts of on-site ministry. You can't ever do all the things. What is the thing you are called to do for who you are, for the context you're in? And just take that next step that you're called to take, that you can lean into and get started with something. The internet makes it hard though, because you see everyone's stuff all the time. Like it's right there and you feel like my graphic's not good enough. My live stream's not slick enough. My comments aren't deep enough. So it's like, it can have a lot of like, I'm not doing good enough feelings. And that's a hard thing to deal with. And I think you got to just pick a thing and really lean into it that's authentic to you and authentic to what you're called to do.
That's really good advice for folks. Just even if you just pick one social media channel, right? And this is where we are going to show up. We're going to create a digital parish here and figure out how to cultivate that space. So it sounds like what I heard was maybe there needs to be some adjustments to the training for our pastors.
Oh, yeah.
This digital age. And so if you agree with that, and this is a question for Ben as well, please feel free to jump in because, you're a person who's worked in education as well. Are our seminaries, are our theological schools keeping up with this digital age and training pastors in the ways that they need to be trained right now in 2026?
I mean, Ben, you got the all the fun letters next to your name, Reverend Doctor. I'm not that far.
I don't think that seminaries and schools of theology are necessarily keeping up. Some have done better than others. Some are simply situated to do better than others. But another part, and Jim, feel free to disagree with me, but another part of this is schools of theology, seminaries are well set up to teach people at least the basics of everything not everything, but of the core tenets of what we would call the Christian faith. They're also pretty well set up to give people exposure to basic forms of ministry, to some work in clinical settings and whatnot. But the seminaries have always had a few things that are kind of like, we probably should have been teaching that. I look at progressive seminaries right now and say, okay, none of you or very few of you are exposing your students to the Spanish language, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that Spanish-speaking people in the United States, as long as the stats still hold, are a large portion of the people, at least progressive pastors, are more than likely going to be working with, or at least coming into contact with. There's always been a call, I think, for pastors to be a little bit better when it comes to bookkeeping. What would happen if we required all parish pastors to take one course in bookkeeping? And I think digital ministry falls into that same category. But there's a second piece to this. And I think we need to do a better job of educating the people who are denominationally helping us form, recruit, engage potential pastors around what digital ministry looks like. I know a pastor friend of mine had to significantly defend his digital ministry when he was going through the ordination process. But when COVID happened, all of a sudden, all the people who were like, well, we're not really sure that digital ministry counts as ministry, all of a sudden we're like, hi, we know you do digital ministry. Help us, please. We need you now. So yes, I think seminaries could do a better job, but at the same time, I also think we need to educate other people, folks who are and are not themselves ordained, about what digital ministry looks like in the church.
And I would say the danger would be, and the easy way out would be for a seminary to say, all right, we're going to keep all of our curriculum that we've had for the past 2 centuries, and now we're going to add a digital ministry elective. Here is the course on digital ministry, which is maybe better than nothing, but maybe, because now we're just creating, this is an elective. This is an extra thing. This is optional. I think what's more essential would be to say, let's reevaluate homiletics and preaching. Okay, let's get you good at standing in a traditional pulpit of the past, but let's invite you to build and step into the pulpits of the future. What are the ways? Because preaching has evolved. It's always a mediation of something. Once upon a time, there was controversy over Augustine printing his sermons on paper for people to read on their own. Oh my goodness, is that still preaching? So it's always been a thing, but we haven't asked the question, how do we do it in these digital spaces? Pastoral care. How does digital spaces intersect with pastoral care? Education classes seem like they're the ripest for it to easily navigate in, but how do you navigate hybrid online spaces? Those need to be baked into the experience, not just like an add-on at the end. Because that's the biggest problem. When the digital stuff becomes the one more thing. I'll get to that if I have time, but I'm already exhausted and I just want to sit down and watch Taylor Tomlinson's new special tonight. How do I deal when I'm...
I love it because my wife loves Taylor Tomlinson. I think we're going to get tickets next time she's in town.
You should. She's amazing. My wife, I've seen her twice. It's the best.
Okay, awesome. And I think you're making a very good point, Jim, because when you say that we need to bake digital ministry into the curriculum, because digital media is baked into our lives. This is not an add-on that some people have and some people don't. It's not like, 20% of people who go to church use social media. No, 100% of people nearly use social media other than, maybe our oldest parishioners. So everyone needs it. And so it should be in the curriculum.
Yeah, because I always say there's 2 questions to ask. Who is my local, my immediate context? Who are the people right here that are showing up every week? Don't spend all your time learning TikTok dances if you have a bunch of 75-year-old church ladies who they don't even care or know what that is. You need to show up for the people right here. And you need to ask them, what spaces are you in? I like to think of it too. If you send an email, if you email your congregants, whether it's individual or mass, you're a digital minister. You're doing digital ministry. You're probably not doing it very well, but you could actually make that email better. So there's lots of questions to ask. But then the second one is not just who's my immediate sitting in the pews context, but who am I called to serve more broadly? And not everyone might have an answer to that. Someone might just be, I'm a pastor at this small church in the small town, and I'm just going to be the best damn pastor I can be. Great. You don't need to become a YouTube superstar. But some people might feel a draw towards public theology in a different way to advocate for a certain, identity or experience. Where are those people showing up online? Be present in those spaces. How can the thing that brings you alive align with the people that you're called to serve, and where and how they show up? and then just be authentic. That's always been what ministry was supposed to be about, and I hope that it can continue to be what it is now and in the future.
Yeah, when again on How Sweet the Sound, so many of our hymn writers are in fact pastors, ministers, and the ones who are most beloved are those who speak very personally and feel the most authentic. So yeah, that is what pastors are supposed to be doing. So let's talk about some of the things that you have done. These original media projects that you've done with the Riverside Church in New York City. So you've got Bible in a Minute, The Word Made Fresh, Sermon on the Runs, Be Still and Go. Tell us what you mean by these media projects. Who are they for? Why would a church do this? What's going on?
Yeah, that's just a bunch of stuff I like to make. My general philosophy with digital ministry is I think there's a value in kind of digital campfires, something that exists that people can gather on. A podcast, for example, like this one right here. It becomes a thing that people can have a shared experience around, and that becomes an opportunity for community to happen and just their own individual experience information. So for me, it's like the why behind making stuff is not because I hope to be Casey Neistat someday. It's I want to make things that help people reclaim an understanding of self and identity and faith and spirituality in the world we find ourselves in today. So a lot of those things are just different dots along the way. Be Still and Go is a podcast we did at Riverside for about 7 years. It was like a daily podcast in Advent and Lent, and then a bonus season here or there. And it was a lot of fun to make a podcast, long form, soundscape, try to pretend I'm Jad Abumrad kind of a feel.
Oh, and, nice. Yeah.
It's always the Radiolab Roman Mars combo was my aesthetic. So that was fun. Other ones are more video-based stuff now. The Word Made Fresh is a weekly sermon prep conversation I host with the preacher at Riverside. Usually it's our senior minister, but sometimes it's guest preachers. So it lets our congregants get an insight as to what's coming, and it lets us share more broadly what we're doing at Riverside if others want to borrow from it. So it's a lot of fun as a sermon prep resource. We've been doing that. We're up to like 250 some episodes of that. So that's been a lot of fun. Wow. Sermon on the Run is kind of what I just make when I'm running, because I run a lot. I'm training for marathons and things. And so I like to have this intersection of online running community and kind of progressive liberal faith. So I will literally every week usually have a long form. By long form, I mean like 5 minutes. Sermon or something that I have developed, and I record it while I run in different places. And so that gets just a way of playing with making something original, like preaching to this context of online spaces. In that sense, it's like, what if a sermon was a YouTube video while you're running? So it's like thinking about that container and then putting it into it. And then Bible in a Minute is probably my favorite project so far. It's a daily short form video project going through the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation, one day, chapter, video, minute at a time. We're if this is May when people are listening to this, I think we'll be in the Gospels now, which is exciting. Ben, you've been on a handful of them, so get ready for more. Siobhan, you might get an invite after this great conversation to be a part of that. But that's been a lot of fun. It does 3 things as its goal. We're trying to teach people something new about the Bible, inspire them to pick it up and read it for themselves, and then model what it looks like to interpret the Bible from a progressive and liberative point of view, which is why it's not just a Jim project. It's not 1,189 chapters from a white, straight, cis dude, because that does not model progressive and liberative theology. It's intentionally diverse from clergy and congregants and a whole range of people. So it's a lot of fun. We have like 200 contributors so far and growing, and it's been really, really fun. My other agenda with that was all the conservative evangelicals who claim that liberal mainliners don't read the Bible. I'm like, want to bet? We're going to read the whole damn thing, one chapter at a time.
Love it. Yeah, no, that sounds like an amazing project. And I love how Sermon on the Runs intersects 2 different communities. I love intersections. I love finding a niche community. Ben will know this by, the places that I find myself. I love having a community of this and this together. So, and I think the internet is a place for folks who find themselves in very niche spaces. Like, I kind of don't and the internet has always been that place, right, for niche. And I think that being Christian or being a person of faith and being queer is still niche. And that's why, especially for LGBTQ plus people of faith, digital ministry is really important. And I'm realizing, I think that's something I knew, but I'm realizing it more through our conversation, because I think, Ben, this is a question that we need to ask at Love Boldly. If you don't have a digital ministry aspect, are you truly doing all you can to be inclusive of LGBTQ plus folks? To the extent that LGBTQ plus folks often find community on the internet first. It's how we find safety and then because of all the religious trauma that has happened in faith spaces, the physical act of walking into a church is difficult for people. It is difficult for me. And I literally have just volunteered to lead 2 services, right? And it is something that is difficult for me. So I know it's difficult for others, but imagine what a digital ministry can do for the person that is that hasn't yet gotten to that point that they can walk through that door.
Yeah. That to me is why progressive faith communities need to be in these digital spaces. Exactly that. Especially LGBTQ folk, so many marginalized communities who've been marginalized by the institution of the church. So they've given up on the church. Does that mean the church needs to say, well, come back? That seems to be the only, card the church keeps playing. But what if we said, okay, these buildings are all, a lot of rent anyway. What if we went to where you are? I'm less interested in bringing people to church, and I'm more interested in bringing church to people. And that's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And I think that's okay. Can we have permission for that? What is church going to look like in 50, 100, 200 years? What can I do now to help make that future possible? I'm thinking of, my great grandkids in that stage. And I want there to be faith communities that are liberative and generative and doing something of substance and impact in the world. And I hope that there is a different stigma and burden. Like, imagine a future when queer people are like, oh, of course I'm going to go to this faith community gathering. They're my people. How do we start building that today? It's going to take some reimagining, and that's what the work's all about.
Yeah, it really is. But Jim, you put that so well. And I just want to emphasize what you said about not expecting LGBTQ plus folks to come back to church, because that is expecting them to do the work of doing that movement. And you're expecting them to move back into a space that has been traumatic and might be painful. How beautiful, how much of an act of love would it be for our churches to do the moving, for our churches to do the work and to meet our LGBTQ plus siblings where they are. Yeah.
That's the job. At least that's how I see it.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Jim, is there anything that I haven't hit on that you are just itching to talk about, and for some reason I have just missed it? Or Ben, is there a question that you are itching to ask? Ben's got his thinking face on. I love it.
I see it.
I do. But I'm not coming up with any good questions.
These have been great. If this was a running podcast, I'd talk more about running, I guess, but we'll save that for someone else.
Well, no, talk about running. That is a thing that I actually, when I have run in the past. So I am the daughter of a track coach. And so I ran, most of my life. I kind of grew up on the track. And when I was in high school, my father insisted that I needed to run cross country because we had a cross country coach at my very small Christian school. Much like you, I went to a small Christian school for 12 years. They're not known for having track teams. But what I found when I ran cross country was how meditative it was. It is one of the only times I've been able to meditate. If folks know me, you're like, yeah, I can see her brain probably doesn't shut up very easily. But running really gets you to that point. And so the idea of praying during a run or listening to a sermon during a run really feels like a good spot. Like, that's actually a really good place to be doing that type of spiritual work.
Yeah. No, I would agree. For me, if someone says, how do you pray? I'll say, well, I breathe and I run. And sometimes those two happen at the same time. So just how do I be aware of my breath and running? I don't run with headphones in. Sometimes I have my phone for, emergencies, whatever,
Mhm.
and I'm filming stuff here and there for all these things I'm doing. But I try to have most of my runs where it's just I'm just moving my body and I'm just present with what's around me, and I'm not checking all the things. I'm not bombarded by all the things, and it becomes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes in the long training runs where I am just, present with myself and the world around me. And that's hard to come by in the world we live
Yes.
in, when it feels like there's always one more unprecedented headline that's hitting all of our phones. And I'm forgetting about the last crisis because the two new ones are distracting me from it. So I it's not that I run to avoid that. I would say I run to be present with it and not to be bombarded by it, but to recognize I'm a human in the midst of all the noise and the chaos. And how do I hold on to my humanity so that others can do the same, and I can build a world where others get to do the same as well.
Well, and to allow your body to process it. I am a
Yeah.
very big believer in process. I am a very process thinker, and I think that sometimes this news, the context that we are living in, we are so bombarded about it and with everything, we don't get a chance to process all of our
Yeah.
emotions that are related to these things before the next one comes along. And so it's like this traffic jam in our emotional spaces. And with running, that all of those different emotions get to process all the way through your body, right?
Yep.
And you really get to deal with them and then get them out. I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's the big part of it, is just processing and getting rid of it.
It's probably one of the few spaces in my life where I'm not multitasking. Like I'm
Oh,
just
yes.
running. And like when I'm folding laundry, I'm listening to a podcast. When I'm emptying, there's two things happening at once. I can't. That says a lot about me, that I can't just be present with one thing. But running is it forces me to in a different way. And I think that's why I like training for marathons, because it means I have to have a certain schedule and rhythm and structure if I want to be able to accomplish the thing, and whatever, whether it's a goal, like a time goal, or just finish the thing. And I also think, what does it model for my kids? I have a 4 and a 5-year-old. So how do they see, growing up, mom and dad take care of their bodies and they do these things? And like, is dad out on a run? Is mom out on a run? I love that's a question that our kids ask if one of us is out of the house. So
That's so neat.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a lot of fun.
wow. Amazing, amazing. Jim, you have been an absolute treat to talk to and learn from. And I just had this revelation. I was like, wait, am I doing digital ministry? Is this podcast digital ministry? And I went, whoa, that's amazing. So thank you, Jim.
You are already ordained in it. We'll just say what's already been true.
Thank you so much. We've learned so much, and we'll definitely have to have you back to learn more. I think this really should be a continuing conversation that we are having with affirming and inclusive churches about digital ministry and about how digital ministry allows you to meet the LGBTQ plus community where they are. So I hope that you'll come back and continue to teach us all about how we can do a better job there.
Anytime, and I'm learning with you too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, y'all, let's jump into our two segments. The first one is the query of the day. And yes, y'all, that is a pun, because, I came up with it, and that's what you can expect from me. All right. So what is our query of the day today for Ben and Jim? I'm going to ask you is, if you had if you could choose which platform to do digital ministry. I'm not saying that anyone should choose just one platform, but as folks that both have Reverend in front of your name, I just want to know your preference. What is your favorite platform for digital ministry? Is it, and that's for actually the doing of digital ministry, is that podcasting? Is it YouTube? Is it, I'll say Instagram, or the platform formerly known as Twitter? Jim, what's your favorite?
Of those choices, I definitely lean into the YouTube camp for lots of reasons. They all have, wealthy billionaires at the helm, which is a whole other conversation. But I feel like YouTube has navigated controversy in a different way than other spaces. So I like the stability, and I just like the possibility. I feel like YouTube is less of a fad in the wind. Meta's been around for a while still, but there's so many changes all the time on Instagram's life and space, and it just YouTube just gives space for all the diversity, and I feel like you can build a different kind of relationship because a longer YouTube video lets you get to know an individual, a creator, part of a community, rather than just the swiping experience. And YouTube has that. YouTube Shorts are there. So I'm a big YouTube evangelist in all things. I think that, but I will say, I think the most essential tool in my day-to-day, week-to-week digital ministry is Zoom. Zoom, I think, is the foundation, because it lets me I'm leading a Bible study half an hour after this call on Zoom. I'm leading a thing tonight on Zoom. Zoom is probably the platform I'm on the most with congregants, and it allows me to actually be present with people and not just be posting stuff hoping someone watches it.
It allows for that two-way communication as opposed to the one-way. Love it. Thank you, Jim. Ben, what about you?
So I am totally an Instagram person. And I don't know what that says about me, but I have really enjoyed doing things, posting content on Instagram. But I think the one that's actually more effective, and I hate to say this, is TikTok.
Wow.
The problem that I have with TikTok is my videos tend to get a ton of, any progressive videos, but still, mine tend to get a ton of trolls up front. And then after like 2 or 3 days, the progressives finally find their way over. And only then do things get positive. So I'm not on TikTok very much, but I have seen far more engagement, positive or negative, particularly to some of our Love Boldly videos and whatnot, on TikTok. So Instagram, TikTok, and I think that speaks more to my ADHD than anything else. Like, I love long form content on YouTube, but personally, I can't really sit through it, because I'm just like, okay, I've been on this for 4 minutes. Let's go on. So a nice 90-second video or less keeps me engaged. So
okay.
In any case, Instagram or TikTok would probably be my preferences personally. But again, they're all, individualized for what they are. So sometimes YouTube makes more sense. Sometimes even Facebook makes more sense.
Yeah. And I think I actually showed my age there when I didn't even include TikTok, because TikTok just isn't on my radar, y'all. When my bestie sends me TikTok videos, I'd be like, girl, I am not downloading that app. Okay. So I am going to say probably YouTube, even though I have been fighting Ben on taking this podcast to YouTube. And that's because, y'all, I had a dream when I was younger of being on the news. Like, I wanted to be a newscaster. I wanted to be sitting at a desk and talking to people and telling them things. Like, that is my life's goal. And I really love YouTube. I learned so much on YouTube. Like you said, I love getting to know a creator and learning from them. And it feels like that it feels like a real relationship, and we know it's not. And, but that would be, I think, a really neat thing to have in my digital ministry quiver, let's say. And
I'll subscribe. Get that YouTube channel up. I'll be your first subscriber.
oh, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Listeners, we want to hear from you. What do you prefer? If you are on the ministry side, what is your digital tool of choice? And if you are on the lay side, if you're on the parishioner side, where do you like to get your digital ministry? Which channels really speak to you? Tell us about it in the comments or on Instagram. And now for go ahead, Ben.
Before we do this segment, I just want to break in and say, to anyone out there who's thinking, I have to be reverend, I have to have gone to seminary, I have to have done any of these things to do digital ministry, or to be a religious or spiritual or faith-based, or God forbid we say Christian content creator out there, you don't need to. And I would particularly put that out to progressive folks, because I think there is this sense among the more evangelical, conservative, whatever you want to call them, folks, that, okay, we know the Bible, let's dive right in and do our content creation online in this religious, albeit probably Christian nationalist space. And as progressives, we're big on our degrees and on our titles and on our whatever. Like, you want to talk about law online? Well, you better be a lawyer. You want to talk about politics? You better be in politics. And we do the same thing in the church. So for progressive folks out there who want to do digital ministry, there are some great resources. Jim has put a lot of them together, in fact. But there's all kinds of resources out there. I encourage people who are not themselves in seminary, graduates of seminary, have reverend in front of their name, whatever, to get out there and put content out there, because we need more progressive Christian content and more progressive faith content out there in general.
Yeah. Ben, you are saying, I mean, you're speaking right to me. I'm one of those people that has been that has not created a YouTube channel, probably because I don't have those letters after my name, and that's just the type A in me. But again, we have just learned together that I am in fact doing digital ministry without having gone to seminary, without any of those letters or qualifications behind my name. My qualifications are my life in the faith, my experience with the church, right? Like those are your qualifications. And the internet is so egalitarian in that way. Yeah. There's very little gatekeeping when it comes to degrees, and that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, Ben, I am going to turn to you now for our moment in queer Christian history. It's when we're reminded that not only have we always been here, but we've always been here in the church.
So folks will hopefully remember, and hopefully you listened to our episode last Sunday when we talked to the Reverend Ben Perry. And you'll remember that Ben and I first crossed paths when he was clergy at Middle Collegiate Church in New York. The same is true for Jim and I. Jim was pretty much my pastor, for lack of a better word, at Middle. I think when Jim left, that role was kind of taken over by Ben. But so I want to focus on Middle Church again this week. And one of the things I asked Ben last week about was his reflections on Middle Church, on the place that Middle Church has been, particularly recently, in the lives of LGBTQIA plus folks. And I asked Jim before we started to also kind of think about that. So Jim, I would love to hear your thoughts about Middle, your time there, and kind of where you see it fitting in, particularly for members of the queer community.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm grateful for the role Middle played in my life, continues to play, and is for so many people. I think we need those kinds of moments of overlap that help us just find a sense of connection and community and affirmation and celebration, and help us see the world more beautifully and broadly than we might have been from our limited perspective. Middle, I think, is that. It's in the East Village. It feels like you're just an extra on Rent, because that's the backdrop, and that's really the vibe of Middle Church. My framing memory around Middle, it began with before I even was on staff. I got to participate in the Pride March with Middle and the other collegiate churches, and then getting to be in the Pride March in New York every year. I was on staff at Middle with Middle. It's not just that we're doing a nice 5-mile walk through the city. Middle always has their gospel choir on a float, so have just this soundtrack moving through, and it's singing like a range of songs. I remember, Katy Perry, Roar, or Firework, or one of them was always on the rotation. And it's stuff that you're like, a church is singing this? And to me, that's a theological message. We show up not just with our bodies and our presence, but we say something. And it became like a groove and a feeling. And wearing a clerical collar with a Love Period shirt over top of it, surrounded by the most fabulous queer community and allies you could ever find, and this soundtrack pumping every block of the city. That, to me, is what Middle continues to do. It's who they continue to be, and how I think churches show up, and Middle has always done that really, really well. And I'll never forget those moments.
Amazing. Thank you, Jim. I definitely have to put Middle on my to visit list. Confession, y'all, I've started putting churches on my visit list. So my next trip, when we go to LA, I will be visiting some church out there in LA. I'm so excited for that. Well, y'all, we have come to the end of another amazing episode. Thank you so much to our amazing guest, Reverend Jim Keat. Reverend Jim, is there anything that you would like to promote, let folks know about digital social media or other digital projects that you've got going on?
Oh, we've talked about a lot of it, but you can find a lot of my stuff. JimKeat.com will give you kind of a hub for all these things. You'll find links to Bible in a Minute and Sermons on the Run and all the stuff that we talked about that I'm making. It's all on all the socials. If you look up Bible in a Minute, if you look up my name, you'll probably find it in most of the places. But lots of good stuff happening, and always grateful to connect with more and more people along the way.
Amazing. Wonderful. Ben, any announcements from Love Boldly that we should share?
just keeping on the radar, we are coming within about 2 weeks of Pride Month, and we will be out and about. Definitely, folks should check out our website, www.loveboldly.org. We will be at Westerville Pride. We will be at Columbus Pride. And especially want to continue to plug the Interfaith Pride Service. We are on our 3rd year of this. This is a Love Boldly started program. We now have a ton of great co-sponsors. So please come out to that. If you haven't already heard when you hear this episode, then you should know that our keynote speaker / preacher is Siobhan, who you will get to hear, along with some really amazing interfaith partners from a number of different faith traditions.
And don't worry, y'all. Ben has already told me to rein in my apostolic Pentecostal, and I got like 10 or 15 minutes, okay? I just want, in case anybody heard that, it was like, oh no, I'm not going to get stuck there all night. I promise. You won't be. But please do join us there, and join us again next week for another amazing episode of Coming Out Christian.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, and maybe just helped you feel a little less alone on your journey. If this podcast has been meaningful to you, would you consider supporting the work of Love Boldly? Love Boldly's mission is to create spaces where LGBTQIA+ people can flourish in Christianity, and your donation helps make conversations like this one possible. You can give at www.loveboldly.net/donate. That's www.loveboldly.net/donate. Want to stay connected with the podcast? Follow us on Instagram at comingoutchristian_podcast for updates, resources, and community. Until next time, remember that you can be queer and Christian and queer.